So, Jack's West, trying to get this figured out for this week and sending the link to Christopher now. So hopefully he'll be able to join us. I'm just noticing now my background is crooked. Let me turn the sound off here. I then have to go to Justice with Jax on my other page over here so I can see who's on and comments. There's Christopher. Admit Christopher. Okay, so going over here, I see Carol Ann. Oh, Carol Ann, I thought you said you were going to be sleeping. So glad you could join us. And one Debbie Lane. Ding dong. Carol Ann won. Yes, Carol Ann did. Debbie Lane, she won that she was first here on the live. It's 6 a.m. and hasn't slept yet. Oh my gosh, Carol Ann, go to sleep. So we've got Gwen and Bryce.
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
All right.
Do you hear me fine?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Because I think when I did this, I didn't hit the thing so that the sound is coming through my microphone. It might be going through my computer. I'm not sure.
Cool.
Whatever. We're at least
it's going somewhere.
Yeah, we're at least on up on Justice with Jax this time and not on my personal. So
good.
That's a plus. So
Very
today
good.
we are going to be doing an overview of the case. And so I'm going to have Christopher do the, talk about the case because he's the one that's been really looking into this for a while. So Christopher, take it away.
Well, this was really one heck of a first case to start off with, don't you think? I mean, this a lot of the team members have fallen in love with Mr. Stinney. They've fallen in love with him and are so sad about how it turned out. I think one of the things that I looked at today was that he has a sister that's still living. And she was largely responsible for getting the judge to take another look at it. And it's just like, she's one of his only immediate family members that's still living. It's just like, it's almost like it's meant to be that she's alive when he was exonerated. That must be like a really horrible weight to carry.
Is this the sister who was with him that day?
Catherine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I can't imagine that as well, that for sure, not just this is my brother and I can't imagine he would do this. I know he wouldn't do this. No, she knows that he wasn't there, that he was with her. And, and she knows what was said to the two girls. So she has known the whole time and she has no voice.
Yeah, it's just so sad, and some of the team members, we looked into what life was like in South Carolina in 1944 for a Black family. And, in some ways it's not a lot different than it is today in South Carolina, sadly. But it's just hard to fathom all those people, because there were 19 people in the execution room, not counting the people in the viewing room, which I mean, that to me, that's weird. I don't get that. I mean, I understand that, they want to see the person die who potentially killed their loved one, but to watch that person be electrocuted.
Yeah. Well, and also, I don't know if this is hypocritical or what, but he's a child. He's 14 years old. Why do you want to watch a 14-year-old get electrocuted? Because even if you were to think that this child did it, there's something wrong. So, right. So to wish I want that child electrocuted, I can't imagine. I mean, I don't like to see anything killed.
No.
Jeff will bitch at me because a mosquito will land on me and I don't kill it. Because he's like, there's no good purpose in life for mosquitoes. Why aren't just slap it? And it's like, no, I just kind of brush it off. I'm stupid. I know. But I would not want to watch a 14-year-old boy
And
get
and
electrocuted.
right, and there was an eyewitness that said that one of the mothers of the girls, she invited everyone over for a big meal, a big celebration dinner after.
Uh-huh.
It's just like the death wasn't enough, the electrocution for a kid, so they want to sell it, but that's really how it was, sadly. And
Yeah.
but just to have still have so many supporters, some of the YouTube videos are getting a lot of views, so there's so many new people that are adding their voice to him.
Right.
And they've done a memorial in his town for him. Because I remember when we first started talking about this, you said that would be something, if we could do like a memorial for something. But
Hmm.
but he just got his gravestone, his head marker, like in the last couple years. It's really tragic,
Right.
but it's a beautiful one.
Well, do you want to give people Cliff's notes of the case for anybody who's tuning in right now that knows nothing about what we're talking about?
Well, we were exploring the case of George Stinney Jr., who was 14 years old when he was convicted, and there's still two people alive today that were in the courtroom, and they said it was a 9-minute trial. It was over before it started. No witness, nobody was allowed to really say much of anything. The people that did were attacked afterwards, physically. Um, and he was walking home, and there were two girls that he met on his way home, and they disappeared. And and his sister says, just like one of the YouTube video shows, it was just like that. The cops came to the house and said, "Have you seen these girls?" He said, "Yes, I seen them on my way home," and that's all it took.
Hmm.
That was the end right there.
Right. Well, and it was 83 days, right? From the day this incident happened to when the kid was executed, right?
They couldn't wait.
83 days is it. And it's also because his lawyer,
Yeah.
just like you have like Brendan Dassey's first lawyer, didn't care at all about his client. And so he did not put on any defense at all, said nothing, had no witnesses. He could have um, um, continued on proceedings
hmm
to try and get this overturned, because that's the way our system is. And he waived it all to just
hmm
let this 14-year-old boy get executed.
It's awful. And you have to think what these people um, must have thought that night when they went home to their wives and children, looking at their children at the dinner table that night.
Mm-hmm.
What conversation must they have had that
Right.
night?
Right. Well, and two people on the jury were in the search party and found the girls. So how are those impartial jurors that they found these dead children? What are my
Mhm.
dogs barking at? Oh, UPS is out front.
Well, that's at a good time.
Um, so yeah, so two people who found the children are on the jury.
Mhm.
No, wrong. I mean, what? And then, since we'll be doing more episodes on this case,
Mhm.
so we're not going to dive completely into everything
Mhm.
on this one, but then you've got like the evidence.
Yeah.
Now, remember when I talk about the Marnie Yang case and how the victim was shot, there is no way that Marnie Yang at 5 feet tall could have shot that 5'9" woman where the bullet is entering here and going down and coming out the arm near the elbow. There's no way that could happen. And
No.
same things in this case. When you look at how these girls were allegedly killed, there's no way this boy could have done that.
Mm-mm. And the people that knew him, the people that have, um, his sister has been compiling most of her life, all these affidavits, all these statements. I mean, she has taken this is her mission in life, for the full exoneration and everything. And she's 86. So
Wow.
it's like she wants this settled. And for the most part it is. For the most
Mm-hmm.
part it is. But nobody will ever there will be no punishments for those people that were involved because they're long gone. But
Mm-hmm.
you'd like to think that somebody in the great somewhere will handle them and deal with them if there is such a thing.
Right. Well, and as somebody said earlier when we first came on, the family was run out of town. I
Yeah.
mean, like that day, and they were not allowed to visit him
Yep.
in jail. They were not allowed in his trial.
No. And
I mean, so they just took that kid from his home, and that's like it. His parents, and he was in a two-parent household. His mom and dad are both there. His dad was fired that night. The house they lived in was owned by his employer, so they were evicted. I'm and the kid it's the day those girls are found. I mean,
yeah.
oh, so it's just right away. And because those girls, this is your typical thing when you hear people are from the wrong side of the tracks.
Hmm.
That's how this town was divided. There were train tracks. And so there was a white side of town and a black side of town. And these two girls were on the black side of town because they were looking for some specific flowers that they heard that was over there. So they're just these two innocent girls wanting to go see these pretty flowers, and they were going to make something with it or something, right? That you did with
Yeah.
these flowers. So they're, and because racism is taught,
Yeah.
not learned,
Right.
or is learned. You're not just you're not born racist. So these girls are just, they're not afraid to go over to the other side of town
No.
because, we're just going to go look for these flowers. And they see this boy and girl and ask them if they know where the flowers are. And
Hmm.
I know I've seen conflicting stories on whether or not George had the cow with him or not have the cow when the girls
Hmm.
came over there. But so it's just, so the sister was with George,
Hmm.
saw these girls, they continued on their way. George, in one story, had said something to them about he has seen some blue flowers over
Hmm.
by the tracks or something like that. And then that's where they're found, and in that vicinity. And
Hmm.
since George had said something to a man, I don't know if it was an officer or what, that he had said that to them, that is like all the evidence they need that he's the one that did it,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know and no, that's not, just because he said he had told them over there and they're found over there, it doesn't mean he's the person who was the last one to to see them or did anything to them.
Yeah. The whole thing was just a tragedy from the beginning to the end. And the his father lived for about 25 years or so after that happened, and his mother lived quite a lengthy, like 40 some years after it happened. So she was alive. They lived quite a long time after this happened. And the sister has said that the mother was in, just, she never left the house. She blamed herself. She regrets not moving the family out of the town, but there was no money. Where were they going to come up with the money? It was just sad. There was an eyewitness at the courtroom that made a statement in 1987 that they heard the judge say, as the judge was coming into the courtroom, "This is going to be a 5-minute job, and we will be able to go home."
Oh my god.
So, see, that's it's sad, but some of this stuff really is still happening today, isn't it? And to some people,
Mm-hmm.
but I like to think that we have made we have made some advancements since 1944, some,
Right.
but more in order, more work in order.
Right. Well, I don't recall all the details on this case, but here in Illinois, the Chicago area, there's a case like that, Emmett Till, who
Hmm.
was, so he was a young Black boy from Chicago who was down south visiting family. And then a white woman, accused him of making sexual advances on her, and he was lynched.
Sad.
And it's later known the woman lied. She's admitted she lied, but
Mean-
nothing you
Meanwhile,
can
the
do.
damage is done.
The boy was murdered. He was lynched because he's
Hmm.
a Black boy. That how dare you whistle at a white woman? And he didn't even do it. I mean, so, and we talked about this the other day too, on how much this story reminds me of John Coffey from Green Mile,
Hmm.
because it's well, now he's a full grown Black man, not a little boy at all. I mean, that guy, um, and it was two white girls, and it was somebody else who did it. But in that, since it's Stephen King and he's trying to take the sick from them and bring them back to life, he's found with the bodies of the girls, and automatically he's the one that did it. So I'm sure this case, Stephen King had to have heard of this case. And, so a little bit of that is in that.
Yeah. But it's just like like when you said there was like a less than 90 days between the time that he was convicted and the murder. I guess we can call it that. It certainly feels like what it was. Of course, nowadays there'd be so many appeals. I mean, it could go on for years. You know how it
Right.
goes on now. But the judge in this case, which is something that the new judge looked into, he disqualified George from quite a few appeals that he could have had.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that kid was dead before he even stepped foot in that courtroom, and that's a crying shame because he could have been president. Well, maybe not back then, but he could have been anything if he wanted to
Right.
be. But
It's
he
a
wasn't
lost
given that
life.
chance. He
Yeah.
never went out on a date. He never drove a car. He never had a checking account.
Right.
It's just sad,
Well,
really
and he
sad.
was his cellmate has said from the get-go, the kid had always said he didn't do anything and
Yeah.
didn't know why he was there, didn't understand, you know, where again, one of the accounts I see, we don't know for sure, but the cellmate admitted what he did, that the cellmate had raped a white woman. He,
Hmm.
so he said he was guilty, but this, so there'd be you wouldn't be surprised then if the kid would say, "Oh yeah, well I did XYZ since this guy is saying he did it." But no, the kid always maintained his innocence and didn't understand what was happening. But it goes again with, if you don't have money to afford legal representation for yourself, they don't care, you
Yeah.
know? And this being the South in the 40s, right? It was 44, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's and this being two little girls that were killed, somebody has to pay for it.
Yeah.
They don't care who, because they need people to just feel comfortable and safe and feel like justice happened, even though it
Mm.
didn't. They just want and if it's a Black person, all the better for the South in the 40s.
Yeah, that's true. And I know that you have some things to say about what your team was up to this past week, but I wanted to acknowledge Carol Ann Fitzgerald and Gwen from my team because they did a lot of work this week. They were looking up articles, they were researching, they were trying to find out some more information. So I felt like they were really working really hard this week. How did your team do?
We've been not much was going on in our team. I would try and prod people, and initially on the first day we had people that were like sharing stuff that they were finding links to things, but there hasn't been a lot of discussion in my team. So
Mhm.
demerits for
Okay.
my team this week. And that goes to me as
I think that
well.
we're going to go over cases that are going to be a little bit, bigger. I don't want to say bigger than this, but they'll be a bit more entailed.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like just like a slam dunk. They look at the articles, they know how it ends. Um, but I think in some of the other ones we do, some of the wrongful convictions, like um, I forget some of the names that they wanted us to do. Those I think will be more. I think a lot of people felt strong emotions with this. I know
Well,
I did.
in for this case, it's black and white. There's no
Yeah.
gray.
Hmm.
So, so there was no pushback from anybody going, I think the kid did it.
Hmm.
Everybody's on the same page that looks into this case that this kid was innocent.
Hmm.
So, so it's just more like any of the discussion we had in the group is just much as we're having here on the comments of this video of people just appalled at what was done to this boy, and that how the court, how the system, I was going to say worked, but didn't work at all.
Hmm. It's
The,
sad.
and this seemed to me to be a very nice family.
Hmm.
And
Hard workers.
I mean, I know there's been reports that George and his brother could be bullies.
Yeah.
Um, but and I'm not going to say the boys will be boys thing, but I guess it is what it is. It's
Yeah.
similar to that. That doesn't mean they're bad people
No.
if you have a teen boy being a little jerk. But even if a teen boy is being a bully, it doesn't mean you murder two
Right.
little girls. That's just not natural for a
No.
14-year-old boy to murder people, children, whatever like that. There's just it.
Yeah. And the people that were saying that they thought, that he was a bully or whatever, I'm just trying to put myself in his place in 1944 with so much racist and always having to look behind always having to keep an eye behind your back, you
Yeah,
know, just growing up like that and trying to figure out what's wrong with us. Why do they treat us like this? What have we done? You
right.
know? Yeah. And I think a lot of the team members, it just was really, there were quite a lot of heavy emotions with this, especially with the electric chair. So I think some of the team members maybe chose to set it out, maybe set this one out. I think a lot of them, it just was pretty heavy emotions when we dived into it.
Well, and they didn't even know how to use the electric chair on somebody of that size.
Yeah.
That it wouldn't be, I mean, electrocution is cruel and unusual no matter how you want to look at it,
Hmm.
but you're supposed to not cause undue harm or pain or trauma. But you're not used to somebody of that weight and that height, and how do you,
No.
you
And they
know
said that one of the people that were there, that he had to set on top of 4 phone books. Remember those like big, massive phone books we used to get
right.
and stuff? And they had to find more phone books for him to sit on. So, I mean, this took some time for them to do that,
Well,
but
and I heard he
still,
was
they did
sitting on
it.
his Bible too. That's another
Hmm.
thing that I heard. It was that
Hmm.
the kid carried a Bible around with him, and they used his Bible for him to sit
Hmm.
on.
Hmm.
I mean, and I am not a religious person, but even I find that very offensive,
Hmm.
that you have to sit on a Bible to be electrocuted.
Yeah, that seems so wrong. And there was applause in the viewing room. So, which I don't get all that. It's like you see somebody struggling and being electrocuted, you're going to applause. There was no evidence,
Right.
but like you said, they wanted to do it to somebody, so they got him. But it was just crazy because there was no evidence. How the girl's parents, must have just. But the police probably went to them. Who
Right.
knows? We just don't know. It was so long ago.
Well,
And,
but it's
yeah.
what we've talked about in like the Stephen Avery case when we talk about the Hallbach family and people want to rip on the Hallbachs. But it's when you are of white privilege
Hmm.
and law enforcement tells you this happened, you have no reason to doubt that.
That's right.
So if law enforcement is saying, we know this is who killed your children, you believe that
Hmm.
wholeheartedly. You have no
Hmm.
reason not to. The police they don't do anything to you negative.
Yeah.
You don't have any bad experiences with law enforcement to doubt what they're saying. So that's what these parents would have done. And also, in that time of, the bad side of the track and the good side of the tracks, you want to believe somebody from the bad side did it. You don't want to think
Right.
somebody from the good side would do this thing.
Hmm.
But there is somebody else who had witnessed that day and
Hmm.
had seen somebody else, a white person in the vicinity.
And the sister also said that when the police came to the house, and when it was going to go down, that he was going to be arrested, one of the police officers said that if you want to take care of your son for us, fine. But basically, they're saying, go, if you want to kill your son for us, go ahead. If not, we're going to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like I said, it's crazy. It's sad. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's angry. It makes you. One of the team members had to literally walk away from the computer after she was reading some of the more articles. It's like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, in the court transcripts, I don't know if you've read them, but yeah, the court
Some,
transcripts are interesting to
yeah.
read as well. I do recommend reading the transcripts. I mean, not that, it's not like it's a long read because it was such a quick trial. There's not a lot of evidence presented, so there's
Mhm.
not much to go over. But I do think the next one we should an assignment for the next week before we go live next should be looking at who's suspected to have really done it.
Mhm.
Let's pour ourselves
Oh, good.
into that and who may have really done it.
Mhm. That's a good idea, because there's a lot, and some of the news articles of recently, of 2014, of 2015, they believe they know who's done it. So that's something for us, for all the team members to look into. And some of the team members are confused. Um, Even if you just want to go on and Google and
Right.
share articles to the group, to the teams, that's participation. You
Right.
know, yeah.
Yeah, you don't even have to read the articles. If you just go
No.
out and find them and share the link, that helps tremendously.
Yeah.
So we've got Jennifer saying, was anyone able to find information on how he became a suspect in the first place? I believe it's just vicinity, right?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just them walking that way.
And
Yeah,
being so honest to the cops and saying, "Yeah, I seen him. I walked by him."
right.
That was the end. The story was over that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I just think it's the girls were seen going that direction.
Yeah, and that was that.
Mm-hmm.
But the sister is, and I've thought about reaching out to her, but she's incredibly delicate.
Sure.
She's put her whole life into turning the tables here, but in some of the interviews that she's done, she's still quite emotional about it. So, there's a right way of reaching out and a wrong way of reaching out. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to reach out if it's going to cause her pain. You never know with these things.
Right.
You always want to do the right thing and you don't want to overstep. It's hard
Yeah.
because she wants to talk. I think she would like to talk.
Well, and Cherry is saying, were girls then not listened to since she was with them?
What was that again?
Cherry says, were girls not listened to back then since
Mhm.
she was with him? And I'm sure that's big, first of all. And she was younger than him too, right?
Mhm.
So how
Mhm.
old was she so she was little. So
Mhm.
they don't care what a little black girl has to say.
Mhm. Yeah. But it's I think the team members, giving them the assignment this next week to look more into, who could have done it, who did it, who likely did do it. I think I think they're going to really want to participate in that. That's getting to some of the better stuff. I think that just around the edges, this case is so tragic, and I think some of the members were just like, this is just too much. It is. It really is. Maybe we should have picked a different case, but they voted. You all voted for this, so we did
Right.
what you'd want us to do.
Cherry says, had color been reversed, would she be listened to? Is what I'm stuck on. Cherry, it
50-50.
probably would again have to do with what side of the tracks was she from. I don't know if there was any white people on that side of the tracks, but but if it's a white girl from a good family, might have been listened to.
The mayor's daughter, perhaps, or something,
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So, but it's much like, and I know I always bring everything back to the Avery case, but it's so you've got Stephen and Brendan, even though Brendan has was coerced into a false confession, it doesn't matter if he changes what he's saying because they wanted Stephen. Doesn't matter what Brendan says, who was with Stephen at that time. We want Stephen. So it doesn't matter what the sister said. We want George. We need this black kid. He's the only one that is in the area. He admits to being in seeing the girls. So that's who it has to be.
And they're doing this case right now. It's some of the law universities. A lot of the law universities are digging into this case. So we're part of a good team.
Okay.
And I think that the more work we do, the more research we do, there's no telling what we could find. It only takes one person to change the future, to see something and identify it. Like so many of the people with Avery the case have done.
Right.
But I think that it's just really hard to fathom what those people must have done with the rest of their lives. The person that flipped the switch, I would just love to know what they must have talked to their family that night at the dinner table about. Just another day at work.
Right.
Where's the dessert?
I don't know what it was that I was just watching recently. It was a documentary on something, and I think it was on some kind of serial killers or whatever. And a guy on there is a guy who literally would go he would travel and be the one that was flipping the switch everywhere. And the guy got off on it. He loved it that he was the one that was flipping these switches. And this was a guy who had been to prison himself, is of shady character. And I'm just like, you're a serial killer, dude. It doesn't matter that our government is having you flip these switches. But he was just proud of the fact that he was the one that flipped the switch. And he would get paid X amount per execution. Loved it. That's sadistic.
That's awful.
Yeah.
That's awful. That is a serial killer. If he was getting off on it, there's no other definition.
Right. Yeah.
I know that we don't talk religion here, but we really do pray and hope that there is a hell somewhere where some of these people are. Yeah.
It's I can't imagine what the sister must feel today.
Yeah.
Knowing that, they got the reversal for him, but just what happened to her family, how they had to fear for the rest of their lives. And like you said, they couldn't have the headstone because it's just somebody's gonna vandalize it and all that, or dig him up and hurt.
And that's what happened. There was 27 years. There was no grave marker at all because of vandalism and stuff. Yeah.
And it's like, so now what? What can you do to make this right? To his sister, there's nothing you can do to make it right, but money could help.
Money could help, and that was something that we were looking into as well. And it doesn't seem like anything. Of course, it doesn't seem like any money is going to be raining down upon her anytime soon. But the judge, even though she did an exoneration, she didn't say he was not guilty. She wouldn't touch base on that. They asked her, she wouldn't talk about that, which was really weird. It's just really weird that the judge didn't really want to talk about that. Um, but I believe his sister she is the only immediate family member that's still living, and I think it's just it's I think that she was supposed to be alive long enough to see him be cleared, is what I believe.
Yeah. But
And she has essentially, but she's even said, you would think all my life I've waited for this, and you would think I would feel better, but she said I don't.
right.
I don't feel better. I'm happy, but I'm not. And she said it split up the whole family. The family ended up moving to 4 different states, and that was the end of that.
Carol Ann says she wouldn't say he was not guilty because it would have opened the door to compensation.
Okay, well, see, that's why that's it.
Right.
There's just always like a little space to protect the big guys, you know?
Right. Well,
There's always a little clause in something that,
it would be nice if there could be some kind of foundation in
yeah.
George's name, or something to be helping juveniles who are incarcerated in
Hmm.
getting legal representation, or something, like when we talked about in Brendan's case on having the juvenile interrogation protection law, that there has to be a lawyer present in some way, because that's something that I had discussed with Laura Nyrider, that
Yeah,
when you live out in the country, if you're arrested at 11 p.m. on a Friday night, you may not be able to get a lawyer there until Monday morning.
right.
So with our technology, they should be able to zoom in,
Hmm.
so it doesn't, so it's not clogging things up and a kid's not having to spend a whole weekend in the jail, that you
Hmm.
have a lawyer there in the room to represent the minor.
Hmm.
um so they could be passing, because I don't believe they have that law, because I believe only California and Illinois are the only two states that,
Hmm.
and in Illinois here, we weren't even able to get it passed for 18 and under. It's like 15 or
Hmm.
14 and under.
Hmm. That's something. That's
Mm-hmm.
something. Um, the place in South Carolina where Mr. Stinney lived is about 45 minutes for me. So I might take a field trip once we can figure
Absolutely.
out some spots and places and stuff like that.
Yeah, you absolutely need to do that. Yeah. Um,
Because
then
now that most of the town now is loves him, is in love with him.
really?
They weren't back then, but now the town is very fond of him, very appreciative. Well, maybe that's not the right word to use, but they're very fond of him.
Okay. Yeah, that would be fascinating to see how that town has changed today.
Hmm.
I will assume like the house that George lived in is probably not even standing at this point. I would think, things have been torn down in new, nicer suburbs built
Yeah.
in the area or whatever,
Hmm.
tract homes.
It's like a little village. It's like a little and like a little village of a town. It's hard to say. It's just like a really small. If you drive through, if you blink, you'll miss it.
Okay. Yeah. That would be, yeah, absolutely awesome if you could go.
Yeah.
Cherry says, if you can visit his grave, I would donate for flowers to be placed on his grave.
Oh, that's beautiful. We'll look into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what we've done for Teresa Halbach the last 2 years that I've gone and visited her.
Hmm.
And, it would be nice to, I mean, it's nothing in what the family's gone through, but it's still, you know, paying your respects to this
Yeah.
poor child, this innocent boy who was doing nothing. He
Yeah.
was just walking with his sister and or his cow, you know. Um and he's just on the wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah. And this is and I was talking to one of my team members, and she was really sad, and I was like, once you look at this story, once you watch the story, you can't unwatch it.
Right.
You're in it, and you're going to feel all sorts of things as we have experienced this past week.
Yeah. It's a tragedy. It really, and like we said, it's the thing that there's nobody who thinks the kid did it, so there's
Yeah.
nothing, we're all on the same page that
Hmm.
this kid was innocent and justice was
Absolutely.
not served. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Jennifer says it would be nice to get a feel of what people there think about it today.
Hmm.
And she said maybe some
A
people
lot of the
living there
town
would
is
be
a
up
lot
for
of the town
interviews.
is I'm sorry. A lot of the town is embarrassed because of the way they dealt with it before.
Right. But
So
it's not their fault.
no.
You know, I don't blame because how many of them even have family that were there
Yeah.
then,
There's
you
still
know?
people alive in that town that were in the courtroom that were there, and they knew that he was innocent then. There were some people in that town that always knew he was innocent.
Yeah. Well, it's that hysteria though, where you get the mob. And it's so when you've got a group of people saying, this is it, this kid did it,
Yeah.
well, you're not going to point the finger anywhere else because then it could be pointed at you. So you're just
Yeah.
going to jump on board with that. Rachel is saying, where can I watch the case?
Well, there's some good stuff on YouTube. There's some good stuff on YouTube. If the videos are too much, then Google. There's a lot of good articles on Google. And Jackson, you said you watched a couple of movies.
Yeah, I'm seeing if I had it written down and I don't know if it's in my garbage, but there's two movies I watched on it. One was called 83 Days,
Hmm.
and then the other one was Charleston Angels or something like that. So one
Okay.
starred Louis Gossett Jr.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so Louis Gossett Jr., and it's totally, so it's not a documentary, totally fictional. They changed the names even in it. So it's just loosely based on it. So in that one, it was that Louis Gossett Jr. was George's older brother. He had been gone from the area for years and up Carolina Skeletons in 83 Days. Thank you, Gwen. Um, and so he had been off in the military and all that, and now he comes home. So people don't even know it's him when he's there, and he's now investigating and wanting to prove that his brother was innocent.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. And then yeah, the 83 days is because of it was 83 days from
Yep.
the girls being killed to the boy being executed. That is unreal.
Yeah.
That does not happen. It's years, 20, 30 years people live on death
Yeah.
row.
There's still people on death row from the 70s and 80s. It's unbelievable.
Well, and that's the thing in the West Memphis 3 case, for
Hmm.
those who are aware of that one, that Damien Eccles was on death row all
Hmm.
those years. And do I have a dog that's up here? Because something's hitting my leg there. So Damien had been on death row. The other two boys had not. Well, death row was slowly killing him.
Hmm.
And so then when they were offered the Alford plea, which is something you don't want. If you're
Yeah.
innocent, you do not want the Alford plea. It's a
Hmm.
thing where you're admitting you're guilty while you can still say you're innocent. But in the
Hmm.
eyes of the law, you are guilty.
Yep.
And so Damien's one co-defendant, it's one of the scenes in the documentary that I sobbed the hardest at, is
Yeah.
that Jason Baldwin did not want to take that Alford plea because he knows we are innocent and we have him on the ropes now and this is going to happen, but it's killing Damien. That's what Damien to this day now wears sunglasses because his eyes being in the dark all that time, now his eyes are extremely sensitive to light. He had so many physical ailments. So that's how many, I don't remember how many years Damien Eccles was in death row, but it was killing him, and so now you have this boy, his trial is a day, and not even a day. It was
Mhm.
how long? 10
9 minutes.
minutes? Oh, 10 minutes to say a 14-year-old boy should be killed.
It's just a tragic all the way around, you know. But the town has made some improvements since then.
Yeah.
But they regard him now as, I wouldn't say the town hero, but he's very highly regarded, and his family.
Okay. Now that they're
I
all
mean, it's
dead.
nice, but you know, the damage is done. It's nice that they're nice to them now, but
Right. Well, they're all dead. So it's easy to be
yeah,
nice to people when they're all dead.
yeah,
You don't have to do anything, you
that's
know.
right. But
So
I think
these
it's
people lived out their lives, the remainder of their lives, as pariahs,
absolutely,
because killing a child is horrible. And he was accused of killing two. So Gwen says there's a book out called Triple Tragedy and in
mhm,
El Colo
mhm.
about the case. She needs to order it and read it.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think that would be great if you were able to go visit, and so we could have an episode on that. And for this week, I want people to really be looking into who really did this
yeah,
and how.
yeah.
You
Because we
know,
can still bring somebody to justice. I mean, the law recognizes. I mean, that we could, if the right information is found, because his sister and their legal team is full ammo. You know, they will do whatever it takes to make everything right.
well, you also don't know how many other people has this person hurt.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, I'm sure they're incapable of hurting people now, because how old would they be? But
yeah,
still, it's how many other people. I mean, maybe there's people, missing people that have nobody knows what happened to them, and maybe
yeah,
this person knows.
yeah. Because there was a couple missing persons in that city around this time, and that was never brought up. It's just it's so awful. Um, but most of the prosecutor, the lawyers involved, they continued on doing law. I mean, they continued doing what they did. You know, they were never given um, any discipline or anything. They continued doing what they've done all along. And the prosecutor, one of the people that told his Mr. Stinney's sister that after the electrocution, the prosecutor and two of his handlers went out for drinks. So the prosecutor and two lawyers went out for drinks. The mother of one of the girls and her squad went back and had a beautiful meal. It's just what planet are we on?
Right. And it's 83 days. So the girls haven't been dead that long.
No, no,
Who's
no.
ready to celebrate? I wouldn't be ready
Yeah,
to celebrate. Yeah, I'd still be in mourning with the, black shawl over my face.
yeah.
Back in the 40s, and how old were these girls? I mean, like 11 and 8
They
or
were,
something
yeah,
like that.
they
They
were
were
not quite,
young, young.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah. And some of the people had said that though that, but this is neither here nor there, but one of the girls had gotten into some trouble, but that's still, I don't care what trouble she got in. She didn't deserve to be killed for it.
Right,
You know, and some people in the town have said bad things about the girls, which I don't think is right because they're dead. You
right.
know,
Hmm.
everybody makes mistakes, but they shouldn't have had to pay for their life.
Right. Yeah, because one of the things that I watched showed the girl like being a brat,
Yeah,
and like talking down to George. Um,
yeah,
but that, yeah, I'm still not, yay, the girl was killed, because they're children,
yeah.
you know. I was an asshole as a child and still am today. Doesn't mean you get to kill me, no matter how much some may want to. um, Amy says the movie I watched for this case showed one officer knew the boy didn't do it and he was still executed. Unbelievable.
Yep.
And now Carol
Hmm.
Ann
They
just
their people
said,
still do.
Carol Ann said, I'm not sure how it works there, but and Carol Ann's in Australia for those that don't know, but here you could have a coroner's inquest hearing and a person could be declared the offender even when dead. The coroner's courts here also don't have the hearsay rule, so more evidence is allowed. I'm not sure if you have coronial, if I'm saying that word right, inquests in the US. I'm not sure, because I don't pretend to be a lawyer.
Hmm.
I seem to remember hearing a case or so that somebody's declared
Yeah,
guilty after death, but um, I don't, yeah, I don't know.
that's a weird one, but I could see why it could be. Stop it.
Mhm. Yeah. So, and yeah, this country, Carol Ann's all about tossing stuff for hearsay,
Yeah.
you know. So, not, I mean, and not that it matters in George's case because he didn't get a fair trial. Period. There was no trial for him.
No.
Um, but so there was no evidence to throw out because no evidence was presented.
That's the saddest part about it. I think that's one of the hardest things to feel, that there was no incriminating evidence except he seen them going where they were going, you
Right.
know. And we look at that case and then we look at today and see, yeah, there's some improvements, but then we still hear of weird cases, you know,
Right.
that have similarities that are still happening. The corruption is still very much alive and well.
Well, and something that was used against him is they do claim that he confessed,
Yeah,
but he never confessed. There is something that's written up that clearly isn't his writing.
yeah. And his
And
sister,
he didn't even sign it, correct? It's not even
uh-huh.
his signature that's on it.
And his sister said he was interviewed for 21 hours. Not interview. What's the name that I'm being?
Interrogated.
Yes, thank you, Jax.
Yeah.
Interrogated for 21 hours.
And
So
I'm
who's not going to
sure,
crack?
right. And I'm sure the writing, because back then in the 40s, I'm sure the kid didn't have great writing skills.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it would be obvious that an adult wrote this and not a boy that was getting a subpar education on the wrong side of the town.
Yeah, that's right. And I think this week when we look into the, uh, it would be nice if the prosecutors had have looked into it. But as we look into, because there are articles on Google that talk about who they now believe did it. Some of the news articles from 2014 and onward, if you
Mhm.
Google. Thank God for Google. Where were we before Google?
Right? Yeah. I
But
can.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
our assignment for this week. And if any of you have any questions, or if anybody's watching this and you want to be on one of our teams, then just send me a private message and we will hook you up.
Right. Because, yeah, you can still join a team. Christopher will just assign you randomly on a team. He's
Random.
been keeping
Yep.
the teams even. So it's
Yeah.
basically whatever team's lopsided or whatever that, he's just going to be putting wherever. So, and then once he puts you in a team, we need you to request to get into either the team Christopher or the team Jack's group,
Yeah.
and then dive in there, post
Yeah.
whatever your thoughts are, whatever you find, doesn't matter what it is. Get,
Yeah. That's just post it, and just post it and participate. That's what we'd like, and that's what so many of you are doing. Um, Jax, did you get your $1 million payroll check for our new crime series yet? I haven't gotten mine.
No, sorry.
No.
hmm
Okay.
yeah, Christopher's referring to, if you didn't see our test the other day, when I had to do a deposition last week in my ongoing divorce, and the lawyer said that I was about to start a new crime series, like I'm making money off of it. And I'm like, it's just a Facebook page. It's crazy. So
Yeah.
yeah, no money. Sorry. This isn't, I mean, I guess if we were to do it as like an official podcast, is there like money in podcasts or something? I don't even listen to podcasts, so I don't know anything about it. Oh,
Mhm.
Lauren Kelly says, my mom's a lawyer and I would be happy to participate.
Ooh, we like that. We like
Yeah.
lawyers. We have
Yes.
enough wannabe lawyers. We like the real lawyers.
Yeah, we like real lawyers who can tell us what the real laws are and not pretend, because I'm not going to pretend to know.
Mm.
So would love to have, a lawyer talk about, look into this case
Mhm.
on what it was like then and be able to find what was wrong with it then from a legal perspective
Yeah,
and what changes there are today.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we'll do. And we appreciate everybody for being here today. And we hope you'll come back and join us on Saturday on Stephen Avery Project for the rally. It's going to be the Road to Freedom rally. And we had hoped to have a t-shirt available for everybody to wear, but Jax, she was so busy with everything. We didn't get to
Yeah.
do that, but we've got a wonderful rally planned for you. It's going to be a beautiful day. There's going to be events going morning, afternoon, and early evening. So those of you who never get to see a live, fingers crossed, maybe you will on Saturday.
Yeah.
And if not, well, we tried.
So yeah, join a team if you haven't already. Get into those groups so next Thursday we'll be live at the same time we went live this Thursday, 1 p.m. Central Time. And we're going to discuss who we think did it and
Mhm.
how, what
Yeah,
the evidence is, what happened to those girls and who did it.
that's what we're
That's
going to
that's what
do.
I want to focus on. So, and then also, if anybody wants to, since Christopher and I are doing this on Zoom, that then goes on to Facebook Live, we can have more of you come on and
Hmm.
speak. So it doesn't have to just be Christopher and I. So we can Brady bunch it up and bring more of you on the screen here.
Yeah,
If people want to go live and talk
yeah,
about what you found and what you think.
yeah. Don't be bashful. We're here, warts and all. So don't, we're good.
Jennifer, it's the same teams because
Yeah,
we're still on the same case. Because she's asking, do they have to sign up again? But no, we're
no,
still on the same case. So teams remain until we switch up.
yeah.
So, all right. So that's going to bring it to a close for today. So, like Christopher said, thank you everybody for joining us. Tune in on Saturday. You can find he's got all the events made are on the Stephen Avery Project public page. So that's where, so RSVP to an event, even if you just click interested. So then hopefully you'll get the notification
Hmm.
of the event. So it'll remind you that a live is happening. So we'll see you on Saturday on Stephen Avery Project for the rally. And then next Thursday to discuss more of the George Stinney case. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Christopher. Investigation continues. Bye, y'all.
Take care.